Hi everyone. So today I thought I'd do a little review on this adaptation of Jack and the Beanstalk that I used to watch growing up. It was developed by Martin Gates Productions, if you don't know, who've also done an adaptation of The Ugly Duckling and The Snow Queen, and came out in 1999. It was a direct-to-video adaptation. I'm going to try not to repeat myself with certain words. I'm trying to do this as professional as I can. Never really done a review like this before, so please bear with me. If I end up repeating myself, I do apologise. But there isn't really much on the development of this film. Trust me, there isn't. All I could find out was the production, who the production people were, and, well, who did the song, who did the soundtrack, and who the cast were. Might as well start off with the story. It's pretty much the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. If you don't know, a boy called Jack tries to sell his cow, ends up getting tricked into buying some magic beans. His mother throws him out the window. They grow a giant beanstalk that reaches into the sky, and Jack climbs up it. Now, when he climbs up the beanstalk, he finds a castle with a giant inside, a hen that lays golden eggs, and a harp that sings on its own. And Jack, being the hero that he is, decides to steal the stuff and makes the giant chase him until he drops down the beanstalk, which causes the giant to fall to his death. Yeah, even to this day, it's kind of debatable whether Jack and the Beanstalk is a typical hero defeats bad guy story, which is why in most adaptations Jack usually has to have a different motivation to, well, do what he does. And this is just one of the stories that does that. Of course, since it's more feature length, they need to expand on it. And what they do by expanding on it is making the journey to get to the giants filled with more obstacles and a bit more side characters to interact with. Starting off with the story itself, I've already explained the basic story. In this one, what they've done is made it into a quest of some kind. They've decided to give it the quest format. But along the way, pretty much, it starts off with how the normal story how the original story starts off with. Like I said, I do apologise for the stuttering. I'm not doing this with a script. I'm just trying to make it up as I go along. I did do my research, but anyway, back to the story. Jack lives alone with his mum from a poor family, sells the cow, gets conned into buying beans, the mum throws him out, and they grow into a beanstalk. Jack climbs up the beanstalk, and once he enters into the, magic land, which is, I believe is called Bean Land in this adaptation. Yeah, he kind of encounters all these different side characters. The most notable two is a little girl called Dilly, who joins him because she's the original owner of the harp, and a talking donkey called Ambrose. Yeah, a animated film before Shrek that had a talking donkey. But we'll get to the characters in a minute. Along the way they encounter other obstacles on their way to encounter the giant, and they eventually reach the giants, and the rest of the story carries on from there, really. Yeah, not really the most in-depth or most expansive story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Hell, I wouldn't even call it the most surreal one, but you know, it's pretty harmless for little kids. Might as well talk about the characters next. Jack himself is. They try to give him a bit of a story, a character arc, where he goes from a naive, gullible boy into a courageous, intelligent hero. But I don't know if it's just me, but he doesn't really go through the growth, if that makes sense. He just doesn't. It doesn't feel like he goes through it. It's like he starts off naive and gullible at this when he's in the real world, but when he's in Beanland, he suddenly takes on a courageous personality like the second he gets there. And I just feel like it happens way too quickly, and I don't feel like he goes through a lesson of some kind. The only thing really, he's not even that interesting either. There's no like memorable lines or anything else like that that makes him stand out. He's a pretty, well, I guess you could say he's a pretty generic fairy tale hero, which he is in the original story. So you gotta give him credit for doing a faithful adaptation of the original character. The other characters, as I said, mentioned, is a little girl called Dilly who joins Jack on his journey. She's the original owner of the harp that the giant stole. She's best way to describe her. She's the stereotypical stubborn little girl you see in animated films. Like, she's very impulsive, always talking, doesn't really know when to stop, sometimes gets into trouble, but for what it's worth, she's not annoying. They do try. They don't make it. She's not unbearable to watch. In fact, you could say she's more engaging than Jack himself is, because she's not afraid to get into the danger. But then we have Ambrose, the talking donkey, and oh my god, he is just so annoying. Definitely one of the worst. Well, not worse. I mean, I'm sure there's worse out there, but if you ever do watch this film, be prepared to be annoyed by him. Like I said, if you thought Eddie Murphy's donkey and Shrek was annoying, you're not going to like Ambrose in this. He just has one of the worst, most ear-grating voices you could ever hear, and he doesn't contribute anything to the overall story. All he does is moans, whines and cries, and doesn't go through a story arc himself, doesn't develop as a character. He just it's just he's just an annoying animal sidekick that they probably felt like they had to include because it's an animated film. The rest of the side characters, they're, I can't say they're alright, because some of them are just there, but you really got to ask yourself why they're there. I mean, Jack's mum only appears at the beginning, then disappears the second he's up the beanstalk. All the other characters they encounter, like the trolls and the other villagers, they just appear for a couple of minutes, and once they're gone, they're gone. I mean, I suppose, you know, that's typical for the quest format. The heroes encounter obstacles and they overcome them. But personally, I feel like some of the obstacles they overcome is just by sheer luck. They don't really think things through, which, you know, it kind of takes you, well, not takes you out of the story, it kind of does feel, it doesn't feel as deserving for the characters when they escape through a situation through sheer luck, and I feel like they do that a lot in this film. And the only recurring characters apart from the main characters themselves are these two vultures who are constantly spying on them. But yeah, I get they're meant to be comic relief, but they felt like forced comic relief, and they don't really, again, much like Ambrose, they don't really contribute much to the overall plot. The only thing they really do is report that they're going to kill the giant. They're trying to kill the giant to the Dark Riders. Well, Night Riders. Dark Riders. I'm pretty sure it's Dark Riders. Now, speaking of which, I might as well talk about the villains of the film, which are obviously the giant and the Dark Riders. The best way to describe the Dark Riders is a kid-friendly version of the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings. I'm not even joking about that. They wear cloaks, they've got raspy voices, and they ride horses. They are practically a family-friendly version of the Nazgul from Lord of the Rings. And that's all they are. They constantly stalk the heroes, much like the Nazgul, but that's it. They're just the henchmen for the giant. And then there's the giant himself, who... Now, the one thing I've got to mention about the giant is, at first he does come across as the typical standard brutish villain, which he is, but I feel like through dialogue they do try to, not much depth, but they try to make him come across as someone who knows he's a brute, but he tries to come across as cultured in some ways, kind of implying that he just wants to be seen as more intelligent. He wants to be seen more than just a big dumb brute. But the film never really goes into it, but obviously it wouldn't. Why would it? Because it's a pretty basic, simple story for kids. It is mainly for kids. That's the target audience. I'm going to quickly mention the animation. Martin Gates Productions animation is pretty standard. Like, it's not bad, it's not wooden, it's just run-of-the-mill average animation. It can be a bit stiff in some parts, but nothing really noteworthy or distracting. One thing I've really got to point out is, well, it's two things actually. The first thing is the backgrounds. The backgrounds are, well, I wouldn't say beautiful, but they're nice to look at. They are well detailed, and I like how they have this Chuck Jones Looney Tunes type style to them, especially when they're in the desert. You can't deny, if you look at that desert scene, it looks like someone came out of a Roadrunner cartoon. And you know what? I feel like I understand what the animators were trying to do with the animation in this film. Because when Jack's in the real world, well, all the characters in the real world, they're realistic. Not Disney, they're realistic, but slightly more detailed and more... They're more detailed and more basic than most animation films. Until he goes into Beanland, when he's into... Sorry, I'm just going back to the backgrounds. The backgrounds are like that as well. They're more realistic and more detailed. But when he goes into Beanland, the animation for both the background and the characters is more exaggerated, more zany, more colourful, as well as most. Well, it pretty much shows that the Fantasyland is more exciting and more interesting than the real world, which it's like in most fantasy films. And that's I wouldn't say it's too exaggerated. It kind of works as it's set in a different world. I might as well talk about the songs because it is a musical. The songs were done by Chris Caswell, I believe, an American musician and composer. Done a lot for the Muppets, apparently. The songs, they're not bad, and they're not too annoying, and there isn't really a lot of them. There's only like 4 major songs throughout the whole film, and they don't really enhance the plot in any way. They're just there to extend the runtime, really, and you can easily tell. They're just pretty forgettable. I mean, I'm sure 1 or 2 of them might be stuck in your head for a couple of hours, but trust me, as soon as you hear them, you'll forget about them. And that's all I can really say about this film, really. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's not perfect or great. It's just a pretty standard, simple, and a kids' film, really. I don't think people will remember it. I think people will easily forget about it after like a first viewing, but it's just if you just want to kill an hour and 2 minutes, then or if you want to keep your kids quiet for an hour, just put this film on. Now, the whole film is on YouTube, but, and this is something I didn't know until I watched it on YouTube again, there's actually a American dub of it, and I'm going to say this right now. If you find a copy of this film, watch the English dub with the English actors, because I'm sorry, but the American actors, they just put no effort into it. It's honestly kind of embarrassing. It's like they just came into the recording studio, told them to read the lines, did 1 take, and that's it. That's what it feels like. So yeah, highly recommend the English dub because they put a lot more effort in their performances, and it definitely feels a lot more lively. And that's all I can say about this film. So, would I recommend it? If you're curious, give it a watch, but just don't expect too much, really. I personally enjoyed it, but maybe that's my nostalgia talking. Yeah, if you just want to watch a basic animated film that's not confusing, not complicated, you don't need to think too much of, give it a watch. And that's it. If I had to give it a final rating, I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Not bad, not good, pretty forgettable, but simple. Okay, well, hope you enjoy. Have a nice day. Bye.